The turquoise waters of the South Pacific shimmered, welcoming Tami to Tahiti. Palm trees swayed in the warm breeze. The air was thick with the scent of exotic flowers. It was a paradise, a world away from her Californian upbringing. Tami, ever the adventurer, felt an immediate connection to this island haven. She was ready to embrace all that it offered. Little did she know, fate had an extraordinary journey in store for her. Tami secured work at the Papeete harbor. Her days were spent amongst the boats, preparing them for voyages to distant islands. She yearned to explore the vast Pacific. The sea called to her, promising adventure and a sense of freedom she craved. Each day the harbor buzzed with activity. Sailors from all walks of life swapped stories of daring voyages and narrow escapes. Tami listened intently, absorbing their wisdom and dreaming of the day she too would embark on an epic adventure. One fateful day, a handsome young sailor strolled into the harbor. His name was Richard Sharp. In that instant, Tami knew her life was about to change forever. Richard was everything Tami wasn't. Experienced, a little rough around the edges, and with a glint in his eye that spoke of countless adventures. He was a skilled sailor, having spent years navigating the treacherous waters of the Pacific. He was drawn to Tami's adventurous spirit and her infectious zest for life. They spent their days exploring hidden coves and basking in the tropical sun. Their nights were filled with laughter, shared dreams, and a love for the sea that bound them together. Richard taught Tami the intricacies of sailing. She in turn brought a sense of joy and wonder to his world-weary heart. One evening as the sun dipped below the horizon, a British couple, Peter and Christine Crompton, approached them. They needed someone to sail their yacht, from Tahiti to San Diego. Richard and Tami didn't hesitate. This was the adventure they had been waiting for. Little did they know, it would be a test of their love and their will to survive unlike anything they could have imagined. Excitement crackled in the air as Richard and Tami made their final preparations. A sleek and sturdy 44-foot sailing yacht, was stocked with provisions for the long journey ahead. They checked the sails, tested the radio equipment, and plotted their course. On October 22, 1983, they bid farewell to the familiar shores of Tahiti. They sliced through the crystal-clear water, her sails billowing in the trade winds. Richard and Tami, their faces aglow with anticipation, felt the thrill of adventure course through their veins. Days turned into nights as they settled into the rhythm of life at sea. Richard, the experienced sailor, confidently guided them through calm waters. Tami, eager to learn, soaked up his knowledge like a sponge. They watched in awe as dolphins danced in the bow wave and flying fish skimmed across the surface. As they approached the equator, the weather began to change. The once gentle trade winds became increasingly erratic. They were sailing into the heart of hurricane season. The air grew heavy with humidity, pressing down on them like a suffocating blanket. The sea, usually alive with the sounds of nature, fell eerily silent. Even the dolphins and flying fish seemed to have disappeared. An unsettling calm settled over the... Richard and Tami monitored the radio, listening intently for weather reports. They hoped to avoid any storms. Despite the absence of any warnings, Richard couldn't shake the feeling of impending doom. He had encountered his fair share of storms during his years at sea. His instincts told him that something big was brewing. Together, they went over their emergency procedures, double-checking their safety equipment and securing everything on deck. They knew that preparation was key to survival when facing the raw power of a Pacific storm. They couldn't have prepared for what was to come. On November 12, 1983, their worst fears were realized. Hurricane Raymond, a Category 4 monster packing winds of over 140 miles per hour, roared to life seemingly out of nowhere. The radio crackled to life, issuing urgent warnings that were lost in the howling wind. It was too late to outrun the storm, that was tossed about like a toy boat in a bathtub. Towering waves, their crests whipped into a frenzy by the hurricane's fury, crashed down on the deck. The wind shrieked through the rigging, threatening to rip the sails to shreds. Richard, his face etched with concern, ordered Tami below deck. As she scrambled below, a monstrous wave, more powerful than any they had encountered before, slammed into the... The force of the impact was deafening. Tami was thrown violently against the cabin wall, her world spinning. She lost consciousness. When she came to, her head throbbing, she realized the full horror of their situation. The was dismasted, her once proud sails ripped to shreds, and Richard was gone. Panic surged through Tami as she desperately searched for Richard. Her calls were swallowed by the roar of the wind and the crashing waves. She clambered onto the wreckage-strewn deck. Her heart sank. There was no sign of him. He had been swept away by the relentless fury of Hurricane Raymond. Alone, injured, and adrift in one of the most remote and unforgiving stretches of ocean on the planet, Tami was facing her worst nightmare. The, battered and bruised but still afloat, was her only lifeline. Drawing on her reserves of strength and determination, Tami began the arduous task of assessing the damage and trying to make the seaworthy again. She was injured, her body racked with pain. But giving up was not an option. She had to survive. She had to believe that somewhere out there, Richard was still alive. Days turned into nights as Tami battled the elements. She rationed her meager food and water supplies, knowing that rescue, if it came at all, was weeks away. As the days turned into weeks, Tami's hope began to dwindle. The relentless sun beat down on her, sapping her energy. Hunger gnawed at her stomach, and the solitude, the crushing loneliness of being adrift in a seemingly endless expanse of ocean, chipped away at her sanity. She began to hallucinate. Richard's face, etched with concern, appeared in the clouds, in the patterns of the waves, even in the constellations that twinkled down at her from the night sky. She talked to him, seeking solace in his imagined presence, drawing strength from their shared memories. These hallucinations, while unsettling, were also a source of comfort. They reminded her of the love they shared, a love that transcended even death. They gave her a reason to keep fighting, to keep believing that she would survive this ordeal, and one day share her story with the world. She repaired these damaged rudder, using whatever materials she could salvage. She refused to give up. After 41 grueling days adrift, Tami's luck finally began to change. A faint flicker on the horizon, barely discernible against the glare of the sun, caught her eye. Could it be? Was it a trick of her exhausted mind, another cruel hallucination? Or was it the glimmer of hope she had been clinging to for so long? As they drifted closer, the flicker resolved itself into the unmistakable silhouette of a ship. Excitement surged through Tami, mingled with a healthy dose of disbelief. Could this be real? Was she finally about to be rescued? Mustering the last of her strength, Tami grabbed a flare gun. She fired a bright red flare into the sky, praying that someone on the ship would see it. The moments that followed seemed to stretch on forever. Then, through the static crackle of the S-battered radio, came a voice, faint but unmistakable. "This is the... We see you. We're coming to get you." Tears of relief and gratitude streamed down Tami's face as a Japanese research vessel, pulled alongside the... Stepping onto solid ground for the first time in 41 days was both exhilarating and surreal. Tami's legs, weakened from weeks at sea, wobbled beneath her. But she didn't care. She was alive. She was safe. The crew of the greeted her with warm smiles and words of comfort. They had heard her story, the harrowing tale of survival against all odds, and were amazed by her courage and resilience. As they steamed towards Hilo, Hawaii, Tami couldn't shake the feeling that a part of her was missing. Richard, her soulmate, her partner in adventure, was gone. She had survived the storm, but at a terrible cost. After recovering in Hawaii, Tami boarded a plane back to Tahiti. The island, once a symbol of hope and happiness, now held bittersweet memories. Everywhere she looked, she saw reminders of Richard, their favorite cafe, the secluded beach where they shared their first kiss, the harbor where their love story had begun. She visited Richard's family, sharing stories of their adventures and finding solace in their shared grief. She returned to the sea, finding comfort in the rhythm of the waves and the salt spray on her face. The ocean, which had taken so much from her, was also her source of healing. Tami knew that Richard would always be a part of her, his memory forever etched in her heart. Tami's incredible story of survival captured the hearts and imaginations of people around the world. Her memoir, Red Sky in Morning, a true story of love, loss, and survival at sea, became an international bestseller, inspiring countless readers with its message of resilience, courage, and the enduring power of the human spirit. She continued to sail, finding solace and strength in the embrace of the sea. She worked as a draftsman, designing boats and sharing her love of sailing with others. She became an advocate for ocean conservation, speaking out about the importance of protecting our planet's most precious resource. Tami Oldham Ashcraft's story is a testament to the indomitable spirit that resides within us all. It's a story that reminds us that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit, like a beacon shining brightly through the storm, can guide us home.